13 News Now begins with breaking news. At 6 o'clock, the polls are now open for in-person voting in Virginia. You're looking live at Windsor Woods Elementary School in Virginia Beach, where people have been lining up since 3:45 this morning.
It's a similar story in Hampton. This is a live look at Aberdeen Elementary School. Those doors opening up any second. Folks there will be glad to get inside because the temperature in the 40s.
Now, this is a critical vote. President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden crisscrossing key battleground states. The president holding 5 rallies in 4 states he won the last time around, hoping to win them again. And former Vice President Joe Biden going all in on Pennsylvania and Ohio, hoping to rebuild that so-called blue wall that collapsed for Democrats 4 years ago. Thank you for trusting Daybreak to bring you up to speed. I'm Ashley Smith.
And I'm Dan Kennedy. We're leaving the spin to the guys on cable. This is the team to trust this morning. Dana Smith is live in Virginia Beach, and Nico Clemens is in Hampton with what you can expect at the polls this morning.
And we are walking you through the 3 big races we are watching locally. Stay with us. We'll do that in the next 30 minutes. Also, the future of casino gaming is on the ballot in 2 cities. And just how long will it take before we know who wins the White House? But first, let's head to meteorologist Craig Moeller with your Election Day forecast. Dan just said it. It's cold out there for these early voters.
It is.
Okay, Bethany, thanks. It is your voice, your vote. And if you're headed out to cast your ballot today, polls just opened minutes ago in Virginia. They close at 7 tonight.
And in North Carolina, polling locations are opening in just about 30 minutes. They'll close at 7:30 tonight.
Let's check in with Dana Smith, who's live outside Windsor Woods Elementary School. And Dana, voters just started going in there. Good morning to you.
Good morning. They're going. Back to you guys.
All right, Dana, thank you for that update.
Here's 3 races we are closely watching tonight. One would be the District 2 congressional race between Democratic incumbent Elaine Luria and her challenger Scott Taylor. Taylor trying to win back the seat he lost to Luria 2 years ago. Another race, will Virginia send a political newcomer, Republican Daniel Gade, to the U.S. Senate? He's trying to unseat incumbent Democrat Senator Mark Warner. And in North Carolina, we're also closely watching the governor's race between Democratic incumbent Roy Cooper and Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest.
And 2 casino referendums are on the ballots, one in Norfolk and the other in Portsmouth. Now, leaders in Portsmouth are working with Rush Street Gaming for the project. If the referendum gets enough votes, leaders estimate the casino would bring more than 1,300 permanent jobs and 1,400 construction jobs to the city. Now, in Norfolk, the Pamunkey Indian tribe already has plans to build one. They just need the thumbs up. This plan lays out a massive casino resort on the Elizabeth River right next to Harbor Park. The tribe has promised 90% of the workforce would be local and 50% would be minority workers. Taxpayers would not pay for any of the development. Well, nearly 100 million Americans have already voted early.
But because of the pandemic, voters took advantage of absentee balloting and early in-person voting like never before. Nationally, voters have cast more than 70% of the total ballots counted in the 2016 general election. In the 2016 presidential election, 166 million Americans voted in total, and 43 million voted early. And this morning, the majority of national polls show that former Vice President Joe Biden is leading. But this race will be decided in those crucial battleground states. In his closing message, Biden criticized President Trump's handling of the pandemic, while President Trump closed out his campaign energized by large crowds.
We're going to beat this virus. We're going to get it under control. And the first step to beating this virus is beating Donald Trump.
This does not look like a second-place finish.
With nearly 100 million ballots already cast, it could take days to determine the winner. The Biden campaign will be in Delaware as the results come in tonight. The president is planning on being in the nation's capital. And there are some important deadlines to be aware of if you're voting by absentee. If you submit an absentee ballot in Virginia, it must be postmarked by today, and they need to receive it by no later than Friday. If you're turning it in person, you have to do that by 7 p.m. tonight. In North Carolina, your mail-in ballot must be received by November 12th, but again, postmarked today. You have until 5 p.m. to turn it in person in North Carolina. Now here's Craig. One thing to know about the weather.
Sunshine, beautiful weather today, Dan. Here.
All right, thank you, Bethany. Coming up, what to expect when you head to the polls, from security to COVID safety. We're live with the long list of changes this year.
Celebration canceled, where the commander-in-chief's election party is being moved to tonight.
But first, hear how our partners in swing states are covering today's big election.
Welcome to Battleground, Arizona. State 48 used to be a sure bet for Republicans, but times have changed. We've seen Arizona turn purple as more and more people have moved here from across the country. Now, President Trump won Arizona 4 years ago, but so far in this election, Joe Biden has had a slight lead in most polls. Still, the race remains very close heading into Election Day, and both campaigns have been out in full force, looking to win our 11 electoral votes.
Your time is now 6:12. You're waking up at daybreak on this election day. And within the past few minutes, polls have opened across the Commonwealth, including this polling place in Fairfax County. Millions of Americans are still expected to head out to the polls today. Despite early voting, there won't just be voters there either, Ashley.
And that's right. Nico Clemens is live in Hampton this morning with how Election Day will look different. Nico, I know it's already busy out there, too.
13 News Now.
All right, Nico, and as you just showed us, a lot of people voting for a lot of different reasons. Stay safe out there. Thank you.
Let's get to your three things to know. It's 6:15 this election day. Non-scalable fencing temporarily installed around the White House perimeter yesterday. It's a preventative move just in case the election sparks any protests at the nation's capital. The White House isn't the only location protected. The district's top cop said his office has not received any credible threats of violence, but that the city has received a number of requests for demonstration permits. President Trump's campaign has deployed an army of volunteers and paid staff to show up at the polls to watch voters. They plan to head to Democratic-leaning areas to watch for ballot fraud. They're expected to challenge the validity of the vote count. The effort is being led by former Trump White House aide Mike Roman, who claims that Trump's army is comprised of 50,000 poll watchers. And so much of the election has been changed because of COVID, and now isn't the time to ease up. New cases are on the rise in 49 states and territories. In total, more than 565,000 cases and almost 6,000 deaths were reported from October 24th to 30th. All right, that's all numbers. Let's put it in perspective for you. It's a 15% increase from the previous 7-day period.
Now, Dan, one of the big questions leading into this is, when will we know who won the election? Mail-in ballots and absentee ballots have to be counted first, and different states have different rules on when those can be counted. So in Arizona, Florida, and Minnesota, mail-in ballots can be counted before Election Day. So those results should come fairly quickly. Now, in North Carolina and Ohio, ballots cannot be counted until today, Election Day. But early in-person voting can be tabulated quickly. So we could learn results from those states tonight, but there's no guarantee on that. Now, in Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, election officials are expecting results anywhere between 2 and 5 days after Election Day. So we should know preliminary results in several swing states shortly after the polls close.
Good morning. I'm Eugene Daniel in Norfolk. In an unprecedented election year, legal teams for presidential campaigns are ready for battle on the days after Election Day. President Trump told supporters in North Carolina over the weekend his lawyers will get to work as soon as the election is over. ABC News reports Joe Biden's campaign is also prepared for a legal fight if necessary. ODU political science professor Dr. Benjamin Molesky says North Carolina will likely be a legal battleground, and he's not surprised lawyers are involved because so much is at stake in this election.
Now, election celebrations will look a little different this year.
That's for sure. The candidates usually have big parties, but the pandemic changing their plans for 2020. We're told Joe Biden is expected to address the nation tonight from Wilmington, Delaware. It's close to where he lives. Sources tell ABC News that the president had planned to gather tonight at his hotel in D.C. That's now changed. He'll host 400 people at the White House instead.
All right, let's turn now to Bethany Reese for a check of the roads before people head to the polls. Is it looking good 18 minutes into rush hour?
Yeah, it's starting to slow down just a little bit at certain polling locations, but that's just to find parking. I've got a full look at the rest of your commute coming up in just a bit. But Craig, cold outside.
Yeah, cold. Some of the inland areas, and it's been great. We've been hearing from our daybreakers saying, oh, really need to bundle up if you're headed out.
Dan, Ashley.
Well, that I voted sticker can score you some pretty sweet deals today.
That's right. Bethany's back with that and what you can do if you don't have a sticker. That's next.
Live look at Windsor Woods Elementary School in Virginia Beach. Look at that line. Polls have been open for 25 minutes. People exercising their right to vote. We'll hear from Dana Smith in 5 minutes. But first, that I voted sticker isn't just proof of your civic duty.
That's right. In some places, it's your ticket to some Election Day freebies. Let's talk about it. Bethany's back now to save you some cash.
Yeah, and you don't think about freebies on Election Day, right? You just think about getting out and voting, but there's actually some deals, and considering this kind of a sweet treat, offering them up to good, if you have an I Vote sticker, there's some sweet treats in your future.
Are you hungry? Well, you can grab a free glazed donut and an I Voted sticker from Krispy Kreme today. Later tonight, Boston Market's offering one free slider from 9 p.m. to close. Need to shake off that election stress? Planet Fitness is offering up a free workout and hydro massage to anyone who votes. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Election Day, it's also National Sandwich Day. Firehouse Subs, Jersey Mike's, and Jimmy John's are all offering some pretty slick deals.
Okay, now, it's technically illegal to offer freebies in exchange for votes, but they get around that by offering these deals up to anyone, regardless if you voted or not. And that little I voted sticker that you get, you don't even need that, because I know some people didn't get them because they were voting absentee or mail-in. You don't need a sticker. Just go up and say you voted and get your freebies.
Awesome. Thank you, Bethany, for that.
Taking a live look outside once again, Windsor Woods Elementary in Virginia Beach, for people lining up to vote.
And pushing for battlegrounds, the presidential candidates spend Election Day Eve out in some must-win locations. That's next on Daybreak.
Tomorrow we have an opportunity to put an end to a presidency that's divided this nation.
This does not look like a second-place finish.
The day is finally here, a historic election and a historic early turnout. Today, millions more will cast their ballots.
By all accounts, former Vice President Joe Biden is leading in the polls, but President Trump is predicting victory. But it all comes down to those key battleground states.
This is the team to trust this morning. Dana Smith in Virginia Beach as voters line up to cast their ballots. They've been doing so since 3:45. Nico Clemens live in Hampton with what you can expect at the polls this morning.
Let's get started. This is 13 News Now Daybreak. Your voice, your vote.
And we start things off here at 6:30 live outside of Windsor Woods Elementary School in Virginia Beach. Just take a look at that line. Only a half hour after the doors open for folks to start voting. Millions have already cast their ballot across the country, but polling places like this one still expected, as you can see, to be very busy today.
13 News Now is live this morning, helping you prepare for this critical moment in American history. And we thank you for coming along for the start of what is sure to be a wild ride. I'm Dan Kennedy.
And I'm Ashley Smith, and we have a lot to unpack this morning. We are watching those lines for you before you head out the door. Also, the important role North Carolina plays in this election cycle, and when or will I need my ID if I go to the polls? That answer depends on where you live, and we'll have a lot more on that coming up in the next few minutes. But first, will you need that jacket and gloves and hat as you head to the polls? Here's meteorologist Craig Moeller.
And sunglasses
and
as
sunglasses.
Well.
There you go.
Dan, Ashley.
Breaking news at 6:30 in the last hour. Polls in both Virginia and North Carolina have opened just 3 minutes ago in North Carolina. And if you're headed out to cast your vote today, this is what you need to know. Polling locations in Virginia close at 7 o'clock tonight. In North Carolina, they close at 7:30 this evening. And as long as you're in line at closing time, they will let you in to cast your ballot.
That's right. And Dana Smith is live outside Windsor Woods Elementary School, where, Dana, voters are not waiting until the polls are almost closing. They've been out there since early this morning. Dana.
Ashley, back to you.
A lot to watch there, Dana. Thanks, and just so great to see so many people out there voting first thing this morning. Appreciate that report. And we want to know how your experience is at the polls. You can send us a picture. You can just text us, tell us how it went. There's the number, 628-6200. And last night, President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden made a last-ditch effort to drum up support ahead of the election today.
That's right. They've spent months battling over their vision for the country, and now it's time for voters to decide. So President Trump's re-election bid took him through 4 battleground states he won back in 2016. That includes North Carolina and Pennsylvania. Now, former Vice President Joe Biden also doubled down in Pennsylvania, a state that could ultimately decide the election.
We're going to win Pennsylvania, and we're going to show the world what America stands for.
I don't know if you know what's happening, but they're very worried, the Democrats, about Florida.
Well, it could take days to count up all the votes in some crucial battleground states, but some big battlegrounds like Florida expect to have their results as early as tonight.
Good morning, I'm Allison Basil. As final ballots start to roll in, a handful of states hold the key to the White House. One of them is the battleground state, North Carolina. A poll by ABC News and the Washington Post shows the race will be tight, with Vice President Joe Biden narrowly ahead of President Donald Trump, 49 to 48%. 13 News Now political analyst Quentin Kidd says a win in North Carolina makes Biden's path to the White House easier, but that Trump really needs North Carolina. North Carolinians have until the 12th to get their mail-in ballot in and counted, as long as it's postmarked by today, Election Day. The State Board of Elections says it should be able to report 97% of results tonight.
Who will lead Virginia's largest city? This morning, the 2 candidates who think they can beat Bobby Dyer.
And the rules have changed. Do you still need to bring an ID with you to the polls? I have the state-by-state breakdown. But first, here's how our news partners in swing states are covering today's big election.
Howdy from Dallas. The big question, will Texas go blue? If it does, that would be huge. This state has been solidly Republican for decades. We're talking bright red. No one would ever think of Texas as a swing state until now. Some polls say Texas is a toss-up, and if Biden flips the state, taking home 38 electoral votes, it would be a huge blow to President Trump.
Dan, Ashley.
Well, in addition to the national and statewide elections, there are also some pretty important races happening right here at home.
That's right. For example, Virginia Beach residents will decide if Bobby Dyer will keep his job as mayor. He faces 2 challengers, Jody Wagner, a former lawyer turned business owner, and surf shop owner Richard R.K. Kowalowicz. Now we move to Portsmouth, where there are 6 people running for mayor. The first 3, Councilmember Paul Battle, Councilmember Shannon Glover, and Old Town business owner Anthony Goodwin. And then there's former council member Danny Meeks, sculptor Cliff Page, and the only woman running in Portsmouth, Donna Sy.
Well, the results are in. A tiny town votes, and 1 presidential candidate swept the board.
Plus, with long lines anticipated, one community turns to the experts, amusement parks, what they're doing to keep voters entertained while they wait.
And this is a live look outside Aberdeen Elementary School in Hampton. What you should expect to see if you head to the polls today. That's next on Daybreak. Thursday at 11 on 13 News Now. It's 6:45 on this Election Day morning. While there was historic early voting turnout this year, millions expected to head to the polls today. We're already seeing some big lines this morning. So what should you expect when you get there?
Well, Nico Clemens is live in Hampton this morning with how this election is going to look different. And Nico, it is busy out there already.
It's busy.
Young adults voting this year. Make sure you join us tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. We'll have live coverage of the presidential election and our area's biggest races. Also, tell us about your experience at the polls this morning. Share your pictures or just tell us how it went. Text the number on your screen, 757-628-6200.
Now, each state is different when it comes to bringing certain items with you to the polls, like identification. In Virginia, yes, you do need an acceptable form of ID to vote. But in North Carolina this year, no, you do not need to have an ID with you to vote.
All right, let's get to 3 things to know this morning. First up, one election board in Ohio using tips and tricks from local amusement parks to make waiting easier. They ordered crowd control ropes, dressed an employee like Uncle Sam, as you just saw, and posted a lot of signs around to keep people entertained while they waited in line. Number 2, a federal judge in Texas says almost 127,000 votes cast at a drive-through polling center will count toward the election. Despite the lawsuit, the Harris County GOP chairman filed an appeal asking the court to bar drive-through voting today. The appeals called the motion, quote, an 11th-hour attempt to disrupt the election. And finally, the first votes made on Election Day are in. 2 small New Hampshire towns cast their ballots just after midnight. In Dixville Notch, all 5 of the town's residents voted for former Vice President Joe Biden. And in nearby Millsfield, Trump took the majority, President Trump, 16-5. And those are your 3 things to know. And now we're checking on the traffic and the weather this Election Day. Bethany, anything on the roads folks need to worry about?
The only thing, if you're heading to the polls, parking lots starting to slow down as you're heading there, but that's a normal slowdown, Craig, and pack the jacket.
Yeah, I think so. Apparently, Nico's guest thought, hey, it's fine to wear a T-shirt. I'm going to show you otherwise. Take a look right now. Skies are clear. It's a good start.
Bethany, thank you. The lines are getting longer outside polling places. Thanks to everyone who shared their pictures with us.
Keep them coming. Shoot us a text at 628-6200. We're getting a last look at lines in Hampton and Virginia Beach. It's your voice, your vote. Next.
We're back now with one thing you need to know.
Polling locations across Virginia and North Carolina are open right now. People started lining up outside Windsor Woods Elementary School in Virginia Beach about 3:45 this morning, and there's still a line there. People are lining up outside Aberdeen Elementary School in Hampton too, although not as big as we see in Virginia Beach. Virginia voters, remember to take your ID with you if you're heading to the polls. In North Carolina, you don't need an ID to vote. And our election coverage continues this afternoon with a 3 o'clock special. We'll be on air until 6:30. Then we'll have local updates every 30 minutes. Of course, be sure to tune in at 11 with full coverage of our area's biggest races. And tomorrow morning, we have a special edition of Daybreak starting early for you at 4 a.m. Here's Bethany.
All right, thanks, Dan. Well, if you're heading out the door...
Things looking good, guys.
All right, Craig, thank you for that. And thank you for joining us for 13 News Now Daybreak. Make sure you join us at noon. We're going to have up-to-the-minute updates of our Election Day coverage.
And, of course, you can get all these stories and more on 13newsnow.com. We start at 4 a.m. tomorrow with election results that you missed overnight. Hope you have a great Election Day, everybody. See you later.